Good day, and welcome to our on-demand webinar, an introduction to the Quantile Framework for Mathematics. We're so pleased that you have taken time from your busy schedule to hear this information. This webinar is a collaboration between Metametrics, creators of the Quantile Framework for Mathematics, and the Connecticut State Department of Education. My name is Matt Copeland, and I am the Director of Educator Engagement here at Metametrics. It's my pleasure to share this information with you, and please, at any time, if you have questions about the Quantile Framework or Quantile measures, do reach out. My email address is mcopeland@lexile.com. Let's start with a quick overview of our time together today. We'll begin this webinar with a quick examination of the big picture, where and why quantile measures are used, both nationally and in Connecticut. Then, we'll dig in and learn about the Quantile Framework for Mathematics. Specifically, we'll talk about the two types of quantile measures that are available: quantile measures for students, and also quantile skill or in concept, or QSC measures for math materials. From there, we'll move into talking about how the Quantile Framework for Mathematics and quantile measures can be used. I'll also be sharing free tools and research-based resources for utilizing quantile measures. We'll finish off our time together today with a few key takeaways to spur you to think about how you might be able to leverage the Quantile Framework for Mathematics in your everyday work. But first, let's take a look at the bigger picture. Nationally, more than 45 million students from all 50 states are receiving Lexile and Quantile measures, and they are doing so in two possible ways. One, they are receiving quantile measures because their state accountability assessment, as is the case here in Connecticut, has been linked with the Quantile Framework, and those measures are reported on the individual student report for the summative assessment, in addition to the student's scale score. Or two, at the local level, a student's school or district is using a benchmark assessment that has also been linked with the Quantile Framework. So in many cases, students may actually be receiving multiple quantile measures within a given school year. On that note, here's a sampling of some of the partner products that have been linked with the Quantile Framework. While this sampling isn't exhaustive, here are some of the product logos and icons from which you can see a student's performance expressed in quantile measures. In fact, here at Metametrics, we don't believe K-12 education needs more assessments. We believe we need to be getting more from the assessments already being administered. Because of this belief, there is no such thing as a quantile test. Google it, you won't find one. Instead, we link our scale to the other assessments so that teachers, parents, and students can leverage our tools to find resources at each student's unique ability level. Across the country, people have come to realize that quantile measures empower stakeholders in various ways. Teachers are able to differentiate instruction and match students to math content at their own unique ability level and still cover the grade level content required. Students can connect with content and also monitor and celebrate their own growth. And families become more knowledgeable about student learning and can participate in their child's growth by helping to reinforce and maintain the math learning that occurs at school. But of course, what matters most is how individuals in Connecticut can access and use these measures. The Connecticut State Department of Education provides to educators, students, families, and communities quantile measures from the Smarter Balanced assessments in grades 3 through 8. Again, at the local level, A student's school or district may also be providing quantile measures from other assessments as well. These measures are included on the Individual Student Report, ISR, as shown here and circled in red. Obviously, these images are too small to read. My apologies. But I do want to point out where on the ISR this information can be found. On the first page, you will find basic information describing what a quantile measure is. On the second page, the student's performance from the assessment is expressed in the quantile metric. These measures are also available inside Connecticut's Comprehensive Assessment Program portal. When visiting the portal, begin by clicking on the Online Reporting System link. Then, identify your district or school and click on Retrieve Student Results. Within the spreadsheet of results that is generated, quantile measures appear in column P. More information about quantile measures is also available from the Connecticut State Department of Education website. From the site's homepage, simply type quantile into the keyword search box in the left-hand navigation bar and navigate to the Lexile and Quantile Measures in Connecticut page. Here is a screenshot of that page and a direct URL if that is helpful. This page contains a wealth of information outlining not only what the Quantile Framework and quantile measures are, but also links to the free tools and resources provided by the department that allow you to utilize these measures in your work. In fact, much of the information I am covering in today's discussion is covered on this webpage as well. So let's dig in and build our understanding of the Quantile Framework for mathematics. For many of you, one of the easiest ways to understand the Quantile Framework for mathematics may be through comparing it to Metametrics' flagship framework, the Lexile Framework for reading. Both frameworks share many of the same characteristics. They are both research-based developmental scales that measure both student ability and the difficulty of material. Both frameworks illuminate instructional opportunities to fuel student learning. However, although the two frameworks are similar, it is important to note that they are not the same, and in fact, are used in slightly different ways. So what is the Quantile Framework for mathematics? At its heart, the Quantile Framework is a common scale. Think of a yardstick here, to measure two seemingly very different things. Both the complexity of math skills and concepts, as presented in a variety of different materials, such as textbooks, activities, games, worksheets, videos, etc., and a student's mathematical ability with an understanding of those same math skills and concepts. Imagine for a moment that we took the entire body of mathematics learning from kindergarten all the way through high school and teased out all of the various fragments of conceptual understanding and all of the various skills a student would need to learn in that time. These pieces of student learning would read very much like grade-level learning standards for mathematics. But here at Metametrics, we call them Quantile Skills and Concepts, or QSCs. There are more than 550 QSCs, each of which has been measured on the quantile scale. So we know how difficult one QSC is in relation to the other QSCs. For example, the skill of rounding whole numbers to a given place value has a quantile measure of 410Q. By identifying which QRCs are present in mathematical materials, think a lesson, or a video, or a game, or a worksheet, we are able to quantify the mathematical complexity that materials contain on the quantile scale. This is how we determine the quantile measure of math materials. However, in addition to quantile skill and concept measures, there are also quantile student measures that quantify both students' conceptual understanding of mathematics and their math ability. These student quantile measures always come from a student's performance on an assessment and suggest what mathematics a student is ready to learn next. And here is an important distinction between the Lexile framework and the Quantile framework. On the reading side, a student's Lexile measure suggests what he or she is ready to do independently, without the help of a teacher or other adult. Whereas on the mathematics side, a student quantile measure suggests a student's readiness for instruction. In other words, the Quantile framework assumes that a highly effective mathematics teacher will be working with and providing instruction on those ready-to-be-learned concepts and skills. Of course, the power of the Quantile framework resides in pairing these quantile student measures with the quantile material measures. If we were to imagine that a student has a quantile measure that is equal to the quantile measure of a lesson he or she is about to learn, say an 840Q student paired with an 840Q lesson, we would say that is a perfect match. However, it's important to understand what that match means. It suggests the student has the foundational knowledge and conceptual understanding to be ready for instruction in that content, because the pairing between student measures and QSCs targets classroom instruction. Again, within the Quantile framework, a perfect match between student measures and material measures assumes that a highly effective classroom teacher is present to guide learning. Whereas a perfect match within the Lexile framework targets independent reading. It is important that we attend to this fact and keep at the forefront of our minds what this perfect match between student measures and material measures really means as we apply it to our work. At the heart of the Quantile framework, however, are the quantile skills and concepts, or QSCs. These QSCs really are the backbone of the Quantile framework. They allow us to not only determine the quantile measure of math materials, but also help us to better understand what mathematics content a student has likely mastered, what content the student is ready to learn next, and what content a student will not be ready to learn until a future date. To understand how this is done, we must understand the relationship between QSCs and knowledge clusters. The 550 plus QSCs are also organized into what are referred to as knowledge clusters. Think of these as mini learning progressions within the mathematics curriculum. They tease out how specific mathematical concepts and skills build upon one another over time. For example, if our focus for a particular lesson is on teaching students to calculate the area of a circle, we need to understand the foundational concepts and skills a student should have under his or her belt before learning about today's focus. And if today's focus is on calculating the area of a circle, it would stand to reason that a student should already understand and be able to work with the concepts of radius, circumference, and pi. We refer to these foundational pieces of learning as prerequisite QSCs. They represent the content that should come before today's learning focus. Similarly, there are also what are referred to as impending QSCs. These are skills and concepts that will come at a later date, where the learning of today's focus will serve as a foundation. For example, if today we're learning about calculating the area of a circle, an impending QSC might involve calculating the area of a cylinder, because to calculate the area of a cylinder, one must first calculate the area of a circle. Understanding the sequencing of these discrete mathematical concepts and skills helps us to better understand our focus math concept and better plan for instruction and learning. A good metaphor for the structure of these knowledge clusters is that of a tree, where the trunk of the tree represents the focus of today's lesson. The roots represent the prerequisite QSCs of foundational learning that should have come before, and the branches and leaves of the tree represent the impending QSCs of future learning. Notice here that the structure of these knowledge clusters is not one-to-one, but rather one-to-many. Each focus QSC may have a whole host of prerequisite and impending QSCs. For more information about the structure and formulation of the knowledge clusters within the Quantile Framework, please visit the URL you see here on the screen. Now that we've established our understanding of what the Quantile Framework is, let's talk a bit about how it can be used. In the classroom, teachers can utilize quantile measures to examine the difficulty of materials and the prerequisite and impending QSCs within each knowledge cluster to sequence learning activities throughout the school year. Teachers can also utilize the knowledge clusters and QSCs to reteach or pre-teach prerequisite concepts and skills to help prepare students for success with specific new learning opportunities. Also, teachers can utilize the knowledge clusters and QSCs to identify aligned resources for remedial and enrichment activities for students. Although the Quantile Framework is geared for instruction, as we discussed before, it can certainly be utilized by parents as well. Here, however, the focus is not on teaching students new math concepts and skills, but rather to reinforce and practice the math already learned at school. In this way, parents can have a profound effect on developing their child's fluency and automaticity with mathematics. Like teachers, parents can use the Quantile Framework to identify games, activities, worksheets, and other resources to target specific mathematical concepts and skills that already have been taught. For example, a child's quantile measure may suggest that he or she is ready to learn about multiplying two-digit numbers. However, if that skill has not been presented as of yet in school, it might serve the child better to continue to practice multiplication of single-digit numbers until that instruction occurs. Parents can also celebrate their child's success by watching the growth in their child's quantile student measures from kindergarten all the way through high school. Lastly, parents can use the Quantile Framework and the aligned activities and resources included as a common language to discuss mathematics and learning with their child's school and teachers. To summarize, quantile measures can be leveraged in a number of ways by educators, parents, and students. They can be used to link student ability to the difficulty of math content, forecast a student's success rate with that content, differentiate instruction for students of diverse abilities, and of course, track student growth and learning over time. A number of resources are available to help deepen your understanding of the Quantile Framework for mathematics and to help communicate the value of the framework to others. Linked here are short videos, an infographic, and 2 guides designed for educators and for families to help explain quantile measures. There are also a variety of research-based tools to help you utilize these measures with students. All of these tools are available within the Lexile and Quantile Hub, which is being provided to you completely free of charge by the Connecticut State Department of Education. The Hub, a kind of one-stop shop for all of the quantile tools, can be accessed by visiting hub.lexile.com. Again, due to time constraints here today, I'm unable to provide you with a tour of these various tools, but will do so in a future recording. Once at the Hub, the first thing you will want to do is register for an account. The purpose in doing so is twofold. First, having an account allows you to save and favorite the resources that you find for easy access later. And second, the account allows us to provide you with the free access we mentioned earlier. So please, be sure when creating your account that you register with your school email address, as that is what is used to verify that free access being provided by the Connecticut State Department of Education, saving you $17.99 per year. Here is a listing of all of the quantile tools currently available in the Hub. This list of tools will continue to grow over time, as will the functionality of each tool, based on feedback from users such as you. Again, I look forward to providing you a tour of the tools at a future date. To summarize the key takeaways from our time together today, quantile measures allow us to examine the relationship between student ability and the difficulty of a wide variety of math materials. We also have access to a host of free tools and resources to leverage those quantile measures to differentiate instruction and connect students with materials at their own unique level. Because they span many different assessments and the entire K-12 student experience, quantile measures also enable us to take a more longitudinal view of growth toward the goal of college and career readiness. Finally, quantile measures and the Quantile Framework allow us to communicate more effectively with families and communities about their child's learning. Please, if you have any questions or if you would like any additional information about the Quantile Framework for mathematics, do not hesitate to send me an email or give me a phone call. I'll be more than happy to talk you through any issues or any questions that you may have. From all of us here at Metametrics, and also all of us at the Connecticut State Department of Education, thanks again for your time today. We hope that you have found this on-demand webinar, an introduction to the Quantile Framework for mathematics, to be beneficial and a wise use of your time. Thank you also very, very much for the important work that you do. Have a wonderful rest of the day.